Welcome to another episode of Chasing Squirrels. Today's episode is brought to you by Proven Recruiting. As an agency, Proven has helped thousands of technology professionals find new opportunities at exciting companies across the United States. They focus on the quality over quantity approach in terms of building lasting relationships with both their candidates and clients. Today's episode is also brought to you by Golden Squirrel, where job matches are created by companies applying to you. Companies apply to you while ensuring their salary and benefits information matches your requirements before they interview you. Create a free profile today at goldensquirrel.io to get access to members-only employer data as well as to unlock the opportunity for companies to apply to you. Today's guest is Matthew Fite, and he is the Senior Vice President of Engineering at Verimatrix. Today we discuss some openings he has on his team and across the organization. The common thread of his current openings is definitely AWS and serverless, as well as some container tech thrown in there as well. But more importantly, you'll get a sense for what a humble, caring, and diligent leader Matt has become through his experiences in tech, spanning the last few decades. So I hope everyone enjoys today's episode. Welcome to another episode of Chasing Squirrels, and on today's episode we have Matthew Fite. He is the Senior Vice President of Engineering at Verimatrix. Welcome to the episode today, Matt.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Kelly. Great to be here.
So typically I will ask what it is that Verimatrix does, but if I ask you that, I think it's going to be a super long answer because you guys touch a lot of different spaces. So I'm going to circle back to that this time. I actually kind of want to get kind of a sense of when you got into software engineering, some of the first experiences you had with computers, and kind of go from there.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm old, so I got into computers a long time ago. My first computer was an Atari 400. I count that as my first computer. And then I'm old enough that computers really weren't even part of our school systems. So I was playing around. My mom she was a teacher and she had a TRS-80. I learned BASIC there, and then I developed an affinity. I had an Amiga 500, and then computers at an early age I knew I wanted to be part of. And honestly, I don't tell this to many people. It was probably when I first saw Star Wars, pardon, that I'm old. I was 9 when I first saw Star Wars, and I learned there in that movie. I was so fascinated by the movie because I learned that ILM had, who wasn't even a company at the time, they had incorporated computers and cameras at the same time, and that like really clicked it for me. And I always I knew I wanted to be. I was really drawn to it. So in college, I went into engineering, electrical engineering, and then So that's how it started. It's from early age. Computers got me.
What was the first professional job you had as a software engineer?
I dabbled with software. Straight out of college, I worked for the government, the federal government, and then I did software while I was with the government, but it wasn't my real responsibility. So ultimately, I left working for the government because I wanted to be a software engineer. I wanted to work with software people. I wanted to do, well, it wasn't Git at the time, but I wanted to share RCS repos with somebody. So that first job was with a company called Argonne Engineering. They were in Northern Virginia. Then I worked for them from, I don't know, very late 90s to early 2000s. And I think I learned all my software skills and just the practice of working with other people and other engineers. Everything I learned good about engineering, I learned at that company.
Was there any Dotcom? We've had a couple CTOs that were in the Dotcom bust of 99. Did you have any experience with that while you were there, or because it was government related, it wasn't really a thing?
So as a professional, I was protected somewhat from that because we were doing government contracting. But that didn't stop my friend and I from trying our own, while I was doing some of this stuff, I also tried to have a consultancy on the side where we were trying to be an ISP in addition to, an early HTML provider to people and put up websites and I think I wrote a shopping cart in Perl at some point in my life. And so I was on the early end of it, but I wasn't part of the boom and bust. I got to watch it happen.
It's more fun to watch it happen anyways.
Yeah, it was safer.
And so then after the government contracting role, where did you go from there?
I worked at Argonne until about 2003, about 2004. I did some that was around the time of Hurricane Katrina. I did some volunteer work there for a while. Argonne eventually went public. That helped me financially for a little bit. I was able to take a couple of years off and do some volunteer work in the Gulf of Mexico. I built houses for a year just because that's what was needed, and cleaned up houses for a year.
That's
But then
awesome.
the engineer in me can't stop being an engineer. So I ended up like developing Ruby on Rails was kind of becoming a thing at the time.
Definitely.
So and I was doing a lot of volunteer work for Habitat for Humanity, and what they needed was just, I'll make this story real short, but there's a construction department, a volunteer services department, and then a family services department. And the metaphor I use is they were all using the same data, but they all had different databases. The construction department's doing it from a Mead composition book. The volunteer department's doing it from an Access database, and the other one's doing an Excel spreadsheet or something. But it was all the same data. And so I saw if I could get all their data into one place and give them all a view like that was for them, what was happening is that metaphorically, maybe the volunteer work needed to be at a certain location on this weekend, but something might have happened, and so they would send the wrong crew to the wrong place. So just I saw this need that data would solve. So anyway, I did that for a little bit, and then I found myself, I met a lot of great people. A guy who eventually led me to San Diego because he wanted to do a startup, and so I came here and did something here, and then eventually I made it to where I am at Verimatrix now.
What was the startup like?
We were it was the year before iPhone. This is like 2006, and it was before iPhones became a big deal. And so what we were trying to do was text messaging, like group text, so that you could actually have threads and group text. And we had developed a little Ruby on Rails thing to try to do that. And then that was around the time Facebook was kind of getting big and iPhones came out. And so I saw they really kind of disrupted any technical innovation we would have done. I saw we weren't going to be very successful. So we kind of pivoted and then lost focus. And then it was time to earn a paycheck.
Did what most startups do. Makes sense. It's funny to hear you talk about group texting as if it's like from like the new perspective where we're all here taking like crazy advantage of that or just, can use it every day. So it's crazy to hear how it evolves.
Yeah.
Kind of sounded like WhatsApp.
It's changed a lot. Yeah, I don't know that we would have done, I'm trying to remember the innovation. So there was a voice over IP service. We were trying to just get SMS connected to SMS and then really actually have the idea of threads. So that you could say, I can't remember my partner's pitch, but it was, if you wanted to tell somebody, look, I'm ready to meet right now at a place, how many of us are ready to do it, and just trying to keep a group chat alive. At the time with their flip phones, I think that maybe was, I guess there was a time in our lives you couldn't do that. I forgot.
There definitely was.
If it was predictive texting, there wasn't much else to it.
Right.
You used to have to have the same key to get the letters, right?
Yeah.
To get like
right.
C and to this day, if some software engineer could just invent the mark as unread for a text message, so I don't accidentally forget to text people back, that would be great too. So there's still innovation that it's not worth building. I'm sure Apple will incorporate eventually, but
that's what Siri's for. Just tell Siri to remind you to reply later.
Siri doesn't understand me. So then you go from startup to earning a paycheck, and then what was your motivation to or what was the thing that kind of drew you to Verimatrix originally, and then kind of the follow-up question is, you've been there for looks like a little over 13 years. So
Yeah,
regardless of why they got you there, keeping you there is always the hard part for most engineers
yeah.
and tech leaders. So
So uh, uh, Verimatrix shared DNA with the company that was trying to do this little startup thing. So they shared board members, and one of the people that I worked with went to Verimatrix. That's how I learned about it. I had only lived in San Diego for maybe a year or two. I didn't know anything about the area, but I fell in with some good people that I learned that I could trust. And I still work with one of these guys today. He's worked at Verimatrix even longer than me now. Um, and I guess when I found Verimatrix, C is kind of where I come from. My background, they needed people doing that at the time. It was interesting work. Just security, content security. I don't know if you want me to get into what they do now, but the
go for it.
work the work was interesting to me at the time. Um, it was a weird time in the world because it was right after Napster had downloading and DRM made it at least started a conversation about am I entitled to the content that I find on the internet? And there was a time in my life that I certainly felt that I was. And then working for Verimatrix, I went there because I needed to make money, and the work was challenging. But it really, and also I guess as I aged, I realized we need money to kind of go back into the content so that we have these great producers that are making things. I want them to have a living so that I can enjoy the content that I watch, and I pay for it now. And Verimatrix is part of that equation. And the Verimatrix I started working for, it's a very different company today. We were acquired even a couple of years ago. I think one of the things I liked about it at the time, it was still kind of small. Maybe I was like employee 80 or something like that. Maybe there was fewer, maybe there's more, but not very much. And that was in 2008. And I started as a software engineer, not even a senior software engineer. I had been a manager before, so it was kind of a software manager before. It was a little bit step back, and it was when the world had kind of fallen apart in 2008-9 because of the economy. So I was looking for some stability. But I've been able to grow there clearly. I mean, professionally, and it's I don't know. My pitch is, and when I'm talking to people who talk to me about employment, is as long as I feel like I'm making a difference, I'm happy where I am. I can stay in one place as long as I feel like I'm making a difference. I feel good. I can't stand to be bored. I like to do hard things, and I don't like taking anything easy. And this company is definitely given me a chance to experience all that, and that's good enough.
Can you give 3 to 5 examples for the audience of some things that I mean, there's probably, and looking at all your material, there's probably like 15 or 20 examples of things you guys do, but maybe like the top 3 to 5 things that you're really into keeping things secure, making sure creators can protect their content, making sure, cars are safe, all kinds of different things across the board. What are some 3 to 5 of the things that are kind
Yeah,
of
of course.
highlights?
Of course, I think the one I'm most familiar with is the content protection, and it's I don't know, just the short use cases. Well, there was a time when people had cable boxes, and now we consume content in much different ways than cable boxes. But it's we provide an entitlement management for we call them operators, telco operators, video operators, people who have subscribers that pay money to watch content. And what we do is we provide a software entitlement management service, so that we can distribute keys to the clients that then want to consume that content, so that they can then decrypt their content, and based on the business rules that our customer has set up. So if you subscribe to someone and you pay your $19.99 to watch content, and you've paid this month's bill, then you're entitled to watch whatever package you've paid for. And our software would allow the the subscriber that you're paying your $19.99 to make the business rules to make that happen. So that's probably where most of our revenue comes from, is that business case right there. We're international. We have more customers outside the United States than we do inside the United States, and that's the business that I've been a part of since 2008. And the Verimatrix has been in that business since at least like 2005, I think.
And you're not dealing with small content creators either. You're dealing with some of the bigger ones. I saw like HBO logo on your guys' website, for example. So you guys are dealing with the biggest problems, if you will, or the ones that the most people are trying to get for free, I guess you could say.
That's right. And so we try to maintain relationships with studios and some of those bigger operators. Certainly we want them to be our customers. But there's also a tremendous amount of operators that we work with regionally and in every country that has cable systems or where people are watching content. But yes.
When did the company go international? It resonated with me when you said, so many users even outside of the US. Like, when did it go? Do you know, or when did it scale to that point?
Well, so since I joined, way back when, we've had, I don't know, we published statistics somewhere to say how many countries we're in. It's over 100 customers that we've had for quite a while now. We have the staff I have today. I mean, we're in I don't know, I could count them up real quick, but we're just, even in the engineering team, we're in several Amsterdam, Germany, France, Scotland, United States. And if I forget Beijing, if I forget one, somebody's gonna be mad at me. So I try not to do that. No, on the fly, I always forget something. But for a while, that we've had that international exposure for a long time.
Are you guys actually publicly traded? I think I saw a ticker symbol on, maybe it was the French stock exchange.
That's correct. Yeah, we're a French. I don't want to pretend to know what the French stock exchange is, but that's where we are. That's where you'll find us.
I don't have to pretend either. I just saw ticker symbols, so I assumed.
There's the ticker symbol, and I watch it.
Awesome. That's awesome. So I just have two more questions about the past, and then I will transition it over to Kelly about some of your roles you have open.
Sure.
My first question is, with Verimatrix, one of the things that you have kind of highlighted that you've done is working in company M&A activities. And so onboarding and integrating engineering teams. And so that's never difficult. In fact, I don't even understand how people do it. So I'm kind of curious how you do it in terms of, I mean, it's kind of topical because there's all this money in the system, if you will. And so all these small companies are getting bought up by larger companies. And so there's just a lot of this going on right now. And so it's always like do we just keep them separate so we don't have to integrate it? Seems like the alternative. So I'm curious how you did that and kind of your thoughts on what you learned in that process.
Yeah, thanks. I've been a part. I've learned. I've probably done it bad and learned to do it better in the years that we've done this at Verimatrix. This most recent one, the integration, inside a company called Inside Secure actually acquired Verimatrix in 2019. I think I have that right. And a smaller company acquired a larger company, and I was in the larger company. And so I've been on it from both sides. I've been on the acquiring side, and I've been on the acquired side. And it's a puzzle. It's a problem to solve every time you do it, and it is challenging to integrate teams, but I think it's the hard thing to do, and it's the right thing to do. But I don't know, I'll probably go to my grave trying to do the right thing and getting it wrong. But I feel this last time around that there was some great things happened. It was actually fun to have been acquired. It put me in a change state. It was scary and frightening, but I think I'm so excited about where we are today as a company. I think that this is a podcast. Nobody's going to hear this, right? We've made it through. I'm not. That's the next name. I'm trying to make a really backhanded joke. That
Yeah, no, we got
through
you.
through the COVID era, I feel grateful and fortunate in the last year where so many people have not, or probably not able to say that my team, we have excelled in the last year. We've stopped doing the dumb stuff. We focus on what's important, and it's really brought focus, like, for us in this last year. And the things we've accomplished in the last year have been hard, but great. And I have hoped that I was going to have this kind of experience in my lifetime, and now to actually have been a part of it, it's transformative and it's wonderful, but it's hard. Man, it's
That's
hard.
great. Yeah, that's great. Are there one or two things that you would warn other CTOs to avoid when trying to integrate teams?
Uh, uh, I firmly believe silos are bad. They're poison. They're toxic, and I hate silos. So I have a very simple plan. I blow up everything. You look for but you can't. A world can't live without walls. You have to have some walls. I don't want to blow up the structural walls, but you got to question and challenge everything. And because I hate segregation. I hate silos. And so, but you got to. I want to run everywhere, and you got to walk before you run, and it's painful for some people. That urgency is calling at you, but you got to take a breath and be deliberate. So being deliberate and intentional has always served me.
Okay. And last question real quick from me is, it looks like you kind of have a passion or at least an interest in AWS at the moment, and building within AWS. I saw you even have a meetup group with AWS that you run
That's
as
right.
well in San Diego. So can
Yeah.
you tell me a little bit about why you started using it and kind of some of your learnings right now? Because it's a super topical subject, if you will, that everybody's trying to
Sure.
figure out right now.
I get 2000, the habitat of humanity thing I talked about a bajillion years ago. I needed a place to stick a database and to store a nightly backup of a database, and S3 came out about that time, and that was a convenient place for me to put something. And I've been a customer of theirs ever since. I've listened to I've read about Jeff Bezos since 1993 or 4 when I first read about Amazon. The guy's a force, and I've learned so much from Amazon, and the 14 leadership principles, but amongst them are customer obsession, and I think their technology is great, and I've just you look and you learn from your heroes, right? So AWS has been a hero of mine, and I've been able to learn from them, and then technology, they're just outpacing everybody. And it's just as a person who's been using them forever, it's in my toolbox.
Are you did you start the AWS group as a result of wanting to attract more developers to the ecosystem within Verimatrix, or what was your motivation behind starting the meetup group?
Yes and no. So everything in my head is a pie chart. So there's never one pie slice for everything. That was part of it. But the bigger slice of the pie was to be a part of the tech community of Sorrento Valley. I wanted, at the time, I wanted to be a part of, I want to be connected in all ways. As a person and then as a company, I wanted my company to be connected locally, to find other people doing this, and to be part of this culture and this community. And then, yeah, and if it leads to us being known or hiring, great. If I can help somebody in their journey, that's great. But I want to be connected in all things.
By the way, Jeff, I didn't get to share with you, this is exactly how Matt and I met at a CTO roundtable. He was very committed and involved in that community as well. And you can just hear, I mean, he just can't help but teach or help or learn, or, and I think going back to that other comment you made, Matt, about, well, you said blowing things up, which I know you meant in the context of shaking things up and helping people learn. and learn and grow. I would love if you could transition maybe to share a little bit about that mindset and how you apply it to the team, because that's the type of conversations we've had. And it's just something someone's not going to get from an interview. And really just to know how that trickles down in your organization and it stemming from someone like you, I think is powerful.
I think, yeah, thank you. I think what, I'm glad you know me well enough to know that I'm not there's not an anarchist in me, but it's I question everything, and I don't want to fall into a trap of assumptions. And certainly I have assumed things in my life, and I know that often that has led me when I'm not questioning, that's when I can be like really vulnerable. We have one of my colleagues, Kim, that we have a little set of sayings that we tell each other, mantras, and one of them is that we want to do what's important, and that means that you actually need to understand what's not important, and that leads you to question everything. And and things don't come with labels that say this is an important thing. It's me. It starts with me. I have to question: do I think this is important or not, and why do I think this is important? And is this a valuable use of our time? And so, like, just finding ways to make these kinds of things and beliefs infectious is kind of what I look for, and to help people question, what is it we're doing here? Why are we doing it? Are we adding value? And are we serving the customer? Are we serving our business? And then if you, or your team, and if you're not doing those things, then what are you doing?
And that's exactly where I've heard you say it starts. And then I think that bleeds down to where Kim has that safety net, Yi has that safety net, Jeff, Richie, like all these other leaders have that safety net to start questioning and be curious and stretch themselves as well. And then again, it trickles down another layer below. I don't know if you can pinpoint exactly where that came from for you, or, maybe just the years of experience in engineering and technology. And, sometimes it's just accumulation. You can't point at any one thing, but I would love to hear, like, did it come from somewhere in particular? Is this like an intentional thing for you if you're reading all the time, or you're listening to some great, I know you mentioned Jeff Bezos as kind of like an inspiration, but is there anywhere else that you grab that type of thought process from?
At some point I had to look inward, and yeah, none of this stuff came from me. I've been absorbing all my life. I talked to my wife. I used to go to bookstores looking for the answer in a book. I didn't even know what the question was. I'm just looking for answers. And I don't know, I could talk about my yoga practice or something that I haven't done in like 5 years. So I don't want you to believe that I'm as where I need to
You're
be.
rusty.
But I'm a little rusty. But I don't. There's an intentionality that I feel has manifested for me in the latter part of my life. There's a certainty. There's a I've great leadership book examples that I could give that I've picked up from. But a lot of this is just, and I don't want to claim authenticity or that it's mine, but I don't know where it came from, but it's right. And when I hear it and I say it out into the universe and I get responses, sometimes it's wrong. And that's the reason I say it out, because through working with other people, I think that we found something that serves us. And it's collaborative. So I guess more than anything, it's ours. And that's about as much as I can say on that right now.
Yeah. I mean, some people can't put their finger on it, but I know if I asked any of your team, whether they can quantify it or not either, like everybody feels it. It's very clear. It's among everyone, and it's real. It's definitely not hype when you're saying, describe the culture, tell us a selling point. Like, I think there is, like you said, a lot of authenticity and just safety. I don't know if that's the right word either, but transitioning over to those teams a little bit for you, can you give a high level of maybe like the tech stack or just the technical environment, keeping in mind the people listening? As a developer, I want them to hear, I don't mean to say buzzwords, but the right things that know that this could be a good spot for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think currently we have, I talked to Kim today, I think we got 6 or 7 open positions. I think 3 of those might be in Europe. And I think all but 2 of them, are AWS cloud, serverless, containers, database, DevOps. I mean, all those words that you would want to use. I think we're just looking for people that think those are cool problems, and either they've they've got a history or they want to do something there. I look with our teams. I've told them even before we were doing cloud stuff that just I want you to have a passion, and if you have a passion, this is a place for you, because we want to. I believe all humans solve problems. Engineers, are good at it. We can't stop ourselves from trying to solve problems, and then we want to solve these problems with these really cool tools.
Right. And there's a mix to that too, from what I've seen. Like, you guys will bring on a junior person and be excited to groom them. You bring on a senior team member, excited to, even groom and help them expand. I think on the job descriptions, I've seen Java and or C++ and or Python. Like, it's not even, to your point, it's not a black and white, like, knockout list. It's more of like, understand our environment and let's see where you fit. I would say that AWS is as close to a knockout maybe as possible, just because of the environment and the products. But I've even seen, hey, if he's got a certification or if she's excited to pick it up, let's have a conversation. So I think the way you're resonating it is definitely accurate. But if someone wants to work with .NET, for example, maybe not the perfect fit, but
maybe not the perfect fit. Yeah,
we might be a little off.
This goes back to our Windows theory, Kelly, but I won't get into it.
Please don't. But you did also hear him say serverless, which we've had pop up in a couple episodes now. So I think that is also exciting to hear, is that you guys are pushing for, the latest and greatest. It's not, I guess that's another good question. Would you describe the projects or initiatives, greenfield development, maybe maintenance, upgrading? I don't know if there's a few things in mind, maybe just to give a high level of what they'd be working on.
Yeah, there's new services that still need to be created. There's old services that need to be made better. I've said a couple times I'm old. When I was young, performance was where engineers spent a lot of time, like profiling performance, looking for bottlenecks. In this day and age, it's like making more cost-effective solutions. And so everything that we have, costs too much. And so we want to make it cost less money and be more performant so we can be more competitive, which means that sometimes you're throwing out the old, and it's not incrementally making something better. You're literally trying to replace something. So I think there's a good mix of new and old that you have to be familiar with, and really it comes down to there's meaningful problems, and we're looking for great people to help solve them.
Yeah, good point. And the other thing I wanted you to touch on is just, well, for one, if it's local or remote, because I know at this point everybody needs to hear that, that piece is on the table to be competitive. So start there, and then I'll wrap up with one more.
So the question is, where do people come from, or do we care anymore? Remote?
People want to know, do I have to sit in the office, or what's my work-life balance going to look like?
So it's still, we still have some evolving policies, but I haven't been to work since last March. I haven't been to our office since last March, and we've been super effective there. And in the last year, we've hired people who I don't expect to see in our offices. So in states from where we've never hired them. And so I think we're just trying to, we don't want to be too declarative and say it's always going to be like this, but we've had some success, and I think that we want to. I don't care where people are. I just, as long as you can work with your team, that's what's most important.
Right. Well, and I think one thing we've all talked about is like wanting to be competitive, right? And if you're just shutting yourself off to the San Diego market, you could be missing some great talent up in LA, or just even 2 hours away or another state away. So it's good to hear that they're trying to find the best candidate versus being too confined. My other question was just if you could give us perspective on the current org, because I have seen on some of the job descriptions, there's a CI/CD component for the developers, or maybe you guys do some test-driven development, just to give people a sense of, is there a QA function? Is there a DevOps function? How mature is all that? And maybe how it all looks.
Yeah, so I guess everything's kind of, there's nothing static. So we have testers on teams. Of the position of the 7 possessions or something I said earlier, I think one of those is a testing position, and 5 of those are development positions, and then maybe there's a product owner position in that mix. And I, teams are responsible for their quality, and they're responsible for their security, and they're responsible for delivering their value. So it's as long as the team can meet those commitments, that's what we're looking for. And I think we're always looking for doers. People that can do things are what we're looking for. And if those things are testing, or those things are a little bit of all of it, that's a great mix also.
Well, and I like the way you're describing it. It's not lanes, like you said earlier, silos, right? It's not about putting you in a box and having you operate within that box. It's, we've got 4 walls, they move around a little bit. Sometimes it's a diamond, sometimes it's a square, sometimes we throw one out and it's a triangle, but trying to like make sure that there's opportunity for growth. And circling back to your mindset, I think that's one thing I've heard you be really intentional about the team, is it's not just the feel of the culture and the feel of execution, but I know you've been really intentional with one-on-ones and making sure that people are feeling professionally challenged, personally challenged. And maybe that's where some of that comes in, right? I don't know. I think Jeff at one point was a rehire and he got to manage and groomed, and just thinking of examples, but it seems like you want to make those walls fit for people, and maybe sometimes it's flexible.
Yeah, I think if nothing else we've learned in the last year, flexibility should be key. I was in some talk, I think there was that whatever the group that was that you and I used to attend, and employees have a choice. And I think more than ever in the new world that we know employees have a choice, because they're not going to be bound to jobs in their city. And I think we've got a set of compelling problems, and I value fulfillment. My goal is for you, if you work on our team, to find fulfillment. Not I don't want you to be happy. I hope you're happy, but I'm optimizing fulfillment. I want you to be challenged. I want you to be stimulated, and I want same thing that's attracting me. I want a place where I feel like I can make a difference, and I want to make a place so that other people can feel like they're making a difference and can see the difference that they're making. And that's, if we can do that, then I think that we've been successful.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say too is just remembering that you took some time off early in your career to pursue a passion and to be fulfilled in some other way outside of work. I can't imagine that isn't at the forefront or somewhere in your mind when you are, looking at candidates of, if there's a year gap, let's have a conversation about it. Or if you raised a family, good for you, right? It seems like you really do take the holistic approach and try not to like look for the cookie cutter. What do they say? Like, forget the culture fit, we want a culture add, right? And I think some of those pieces, I mean, I would love to take a year off and maybe I'd be a better producer because of that in the long run. So it's cool that you can be open and kind of look at it from a whole picture.
Yeah. I mean, life is messy and comes with choices and consequences, and we learn, and if we're lucky, we learn as we grow older. So if people have found their purpose, you can hear it when you talk to them. And if you early on in the conversation, you'll know if people are looking for their purpose or they found their purpose. And there's a place for all types, because we're all a work in progress.
Yep, agreed.
The thing I always say is that you can keep engineers surprisingly long if you just make sure they're not bored, because it's really just a problem solving thing where you just keep the mind moving. And you guys have so many products and services to various teams. Like, I can't imagine there's a technical problem in even almost any industry that you can't be like, all right, you guys can go on that team if you've kind of solved all the problems in this particular space. So,
by the way, I just remembered something about your old office that I know we might not get back to, but you guys always used to have a puzzle out. And it always made me so happy when I'd walk by. I'd want to like just, unplug for 30 minutes and put some pieces in. And you always had a great tea selection for anyone that, wanted to have tea instead of coffee. You had a big conference space. So yeah, I know it's not all about the office, but I think some of that resonates with the culture that you've obviously harnessed regardless of being remote. So I'll pass it back to Jeff if he has any other questions, but I'm happy that we got the insight.
One thing that Kelly and I can actually add some insight to you is, now that there's people used to optimize websites, now you said it's more about cost efficiency. So we learned that we had a previous guest who had a team or a guy that was from Italy, And so he got his commas and periods confused. So when he was doing serverless, he freaked out because he thought his bill was tens of thousands of dollars instead of $10. So you might want to just make sure the team knows the difference more often than not. Is there anything else? Yeah, that's as much use as we can be today. Yeah. Is there anything else that we did not cover about Verimatrix or the culture that you'd like to touch on?
No, I think we hit it all. It's clearly, for me, it's been a challenging place to work in a rewarding way, and so I probably have some bias there. But I enjoy it, and I feel others could too.
I mean, actions speak louder than words, and you've been there for a long period of time. So I feel like that's saying more than words could, for sure.
Yeah. Very cool.
Thanks for coming on the show today, Matt. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Kelly.
Welcome.
Thanks again for listening to today's episode. Today's episode was brought to you by Proven Recruiting. As an agency, Proven has helped thousands of technology professionals find new opportunities at exciting companies across the United States. They focus on the quality over quantity approach in terms of building lasting relationships with both their candidates and clients. Thanks again for listening to today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights where we bring job posts to life.